Yo, what's up,
Yo.
Justin?
Yo, what's
How we
up, Cal?
doing?
Not bad, not bad. Yourself?
Welcome to a special episode. I'm doing all right, man. I'm doing all right. We're doing. I'm starting everything off today because we wanted to try something a little different, right? But yeah, no, I've been all right. Been all right. How have you been? Have I already
Not
asked you
bad.
that?
I've been okay. And like this episode, we're calling it Study Break, Cal. Because,
I
we,
like
we,
this.
we can't be like sitting there like talking about productivity, this, career, that all the time, right? We got to chill out once in a while, talk
What a
about the fun
nerd.
things. Yeah, it can't be a nerd, bro.
I can't be a nerd too long. Yeah, no, for sure. No. We're just talking about the nerds that we dislike. I don't want to be that nerd. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, exactly.
For sure. Yeah. This is nice, but study break, man. I really like this. Justin, you've got some serious creative juices because even the naming in itself, I was very impressed. I was like, study break.
I was watching
You know
Lunch
what?
Break by Wong Fu, and I was like, study break.
Why would you call yourself out like that? It could have been an original idea. You didn't need to sell yourself short like that. Could have been an original Justin Lung idea, but
You know
no,
what?
yeah, this is
Don't worry about Wong Fu. That was my idea. Study break.
yeah, exactly. Cut that out.
Yeah.
But yeah, today we're gonna talk about some more unrelated things, man. Just like less serious topics. Not always about being on the grind, on the hustle, getting that coin, right? Yeah, hopefully we'd be able to just unwind a little bit today and share some of the things that we've come across and any of the hot
Definitely.
topics, opinions that we might have in our minds, right?
And one thing that I wanted to do was I was editing our last podcast, and then I say like too much. And I was watching it, and I say like twice every sentence. It's not good. So that's what I'm going to focus on today. Try to do that a little bit, work on my speaking skills. Because we've been
Yeah.
doing this for a while. We've podcasted, this is episode 26 of our podcast.
Yeah.
We've been podcasting for a year and a half now. More than a year
My
and a half,
gosh.
but a long time. And I feel like, I don't know, we're getting better at this. I feel like I've become a better speaker because of it. What do you reckon, Cal?
No, for sure. I think this has made me. You know what's crazy? I think the biggest development for me is being able to hear myself back. That's
Oh, that's a big
something
one.
I've taken from this experience. Like, because I do have to watch this back sometimes. I do want to see how it's gone. That has been like, oh my gosh, like one of the biggest fears when I was younger. Like, don't listen to my own voice. Like, it sounds terrible. But now, like, I can actually sit in a room, hear my own recording, and not want to kill myself. It's like, oh shit, this is pretty good. I think that's probably one of the biggest developments for me. But just on that point where you're saying, oh, we say like, or you say like too much. I feel like I say like just as much sometimes. Another gripe that I've had with myself is just the word I think. And I think it stems from just being afraid of putting your foot down. It's like, this is my belief. It's like, oh no, I think, okay, it's not the truth. Don't come for me because I just think this. This is, do you see where I'm coming from? Because I feel like we
I
sometimes
actually
talk
like
about
that.
very.
I actually like that though. It's something I picked up from you because I think I have a natural tendency to say the things I think as fact, and
Yeah,
that has
yeah,
come
yeah,
to
yeah.
bite me in the butt too many times. And it's more correct to say I think because if I don't know it to be true, or if I don't believe with 99% certainty that
That is
it's
true.
true, I shouldn't be saying it with 100% certainty, right? So I've actually like picked up like saying more I thinks because of like interacting with you,
Okay.
which is a good thing, I think. I don't know.
Okay, cool. That was it was definitely in my own head where I'm like, I might be saying that a bit much. Maybe I just want to bounce it off you. I think I got it as a teacher. Like, as a teacher, you want to be confident in times, but you also got to understand that hey, sometimes the things that you say will come back and be corrected later down the line, and to be less of a fool and to be more open minded. You don't want to be too strong on certain ideas, certain things that you might teach, right? It's kind of like my tactic in like it's I don't know, it feels kind of dirty. It feels a bit manipulative because it's like maybe a student will come back, it's like, so you said this, and it's like, no, I said I thought it was.
That's funny.
And it's like, oh, I'm
Some
always safe,
students
you know
like,
what I mean?
oh, I got him now.
Yeah,
I caught Sir Cow on this, and then brings it up
caught
during
him lacking.
class.
Yeah.
And then I said, I think.
Exactly. Run the tape back. I said I think, man. It was my opinion. It was not a fact. But that just reminds me, we're just sharing opinions here. It's like it's very much just a.
And
It's-
I want to hear your opinion on Evangelion 3 plus 1.01.
Thrice upon a time. This is. Oh my god! It's so. There's so much to unpack from this, and I think
It's been a long
Definitely.
time coming as well because
Yes.
we were watching
Yes.
this in year 12.
And maybe a
In
little earlier, year 11, year 12.
year 11, year 12, 2013,
Yeah.
2014, a long time ago.
Yeah.
And for the people who don't follow Evangelion, whatever rock you're hiding under, the
No, not
um,
really.
that's what I like to think. I'm a bit of a weeb, so I
True,
only hang
true,
out
true,
with
true.
weebs.
True. The status quo is Evangelion. Everyone who doesn't know Evangelion, you are the individual. You're the weirdos, man.
Exactly.
I
But
feel like we're the weirdos, but
the fourth movie, definitely. The fourth movie came out only like this year, and then it's been in the works for so long. Third movie came out, I don't even remember, but over 10 years ago, right?
yeah, something like that. I don't have the exact numbers in my mind, but it's something ridiculous like that. And like the funniest thing that I remember from this is just like reading comments of, because the release date for this movie that has now officially come out worldwide, like last week or something like that. That release date has been pushed back so many times, right? What was the first time they said they were going to release it? Like
2014 or
2015,
something.
2014.
Somewhere then.
And like I remember last year reading just like, because last year they're like, okay, we're gonna release it, and then COVID happened, so then they pushed it back again, right? Pushed it back again, right? And so people were like, holy, I finished medical school in the time that I've been waiting for this, and I'm like, oh my god, it just puts it so much context into how long it has been for us waiting for these movies to kind of come out, or this last one to come out.
It feels like I've had a life in between. Like I've
Yes!
changed so much as a person. Like
my God.
between that, like waiting for that movie and actually watching that movie.
I think that has so much bearing on the movie itself as well, because the movie is so much an expression of the director and like the mental state he was always in. And I think when you compare maybe the movies to the anime, you can see maybe a different type of storytelling, a different agenda that he might be pushing, just because he or what I was reading, he is in a better state now. He is in a happier state right now. And when he made the original Evangelion, he was in a terrible state. And so I think a lot of that nihilism kind of came through, just like, oh, the world is meaningless, or this is straight up.
It was
like,
very bleak. And
super.
just for the listeners who don't know about Evangelion, so kind of there's a whole history of this, but the first thing is that it's an anime. Came out in like the 80s or something, like pretty old.
Yeah.
And then it had a pretty controversial ending to it. Basically, the studio ran out of budget, and the last two episodes were a PowerPoint presentation. So and like this is a super popular series as well, so the fans just want more because of that not very satisfying feeling.
Yeah.
You got a movie, and then it was
End of Evangelion.
End of Evangelion, and then it got rebooted as a series of movies.
Yeah.
And reboot's probably the wrong word because now we know that it's actually a sequel.
A sequel, continuation.
Yeah.
But like the thing is, like I think End of Evangelion is so. Wow, it's so. I mean, I think the themes are so strong in the old anime. Like they were very gung ho behind a certain thematic concern. Like, hey, escapism is terrible. You cannot avoid your problems. You can't run away from your problems. You need to face it. And that's the only way you can improve your life. And I think that's really beautiful in itself. But I think it's much more of a testament of what the director was feeling at the time, and now the director being in a better place, you can see that there's a slight difference in like what he's telling in this new set of stories or in the sequel, right? Some people I found like didn't really like how there was a change of pace, but it's like it also feels like, yo, this guy's not depressed anymore. Be happy for him. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's not the exact same thing, but it's like I don't feel like it should be the same thing. Like, why put him back into this terrible mental state just so he can reproduce this crazy nihilistic, bleak anime that was like, you know, I think it was one of the greatest like post-apocalyptic takes or settings, environments, world buildings that I had experienced up until that point. And so I think that was really like the stickler for me. Like it just grabs me and like my attention at that time. I mean, we watched it when we were going through adolescence, so like I think we also identified with the protagonist very hard, maybe. Well, I don't want to speak speak for you, Justin, but I very much identified with the protagonist and kind of like his struggles, and that was just like I was reading somewhere. I read this amazing review of the movie, and like he just goes through his experience of all of Evangelion, and I wanted to share. I definitely send it to you after this, Justin. I think it's a long read, but if you have time, I would recommend it. It builds so much appreciation around like everything. It's amazing. But I think for me it was like, or for a lot of people, it was like this empathy machine. It's like, hey, you are also in this shitty part of your life. Here is this empathy machine. Here is someone you can like, kind of identify with. And so I think maybe some people are still stuck in that rut. So when they see something a bit more positive, a more positive spin on all of this, they kind of have a bit of a disconnect and they're like, oh, this kind of sucks. And that's not their fault. I don't want to blame anyone like that. But like, I don't want to put the, oh my God, it's your fault for being in this terrible position. But I want to speak to my personal experience of being in a better position from like 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, right? And also being perfectly aligned with this movie and where the director is. He is in a better position. I'm in a better position. And I felt so much catharsis watching that movie. Kelly sat there with me for the last 30 minutes just watching, like, because she wasn't fully interested, but I was like, I'll watch it with you at your house. And at the end, I was just crying, like, not even like, teary eye a little bit. I was just straight like, like full ugly crying. And she was like, I've never seen you cry so hard to a movie. Like, I don't think I've ever cried. I don't think, if I recall, like even in private, I've never cried to something so hard. And I think that is just the experience that I wanted to share. It was just, I hope someone out there had a similar experience. It was beautiful for me. Like how he ended everything, the music.
The music was so good in this movie.
Holy hell, man. And I think the final 30 minutes, probably my favorite. The final 30, 40 minutes of just, there was so much callback. You saw so much of the old movie kind of redrawn, right? But yeah, how it ended, definitely not everyone's cup of tea, because a lot of people definitely ship, like, oh, this character with that character. And then, he does something completely different. Spoilers alert. But for me, it was just that perfect, like, oh, this is what I needed. I'm stepping into this next phase of my life. I'm an adult now. Like, I'm gonna let go of my childhood. And in the same vein, you watch Shinji, the protagonist, kind of let go of his problems and learn to move on beyond like the things that have held him back this whole time, right? And all of that psychology is wrapped in mecha. How crazy is that? Isn't that just the crazy thing? All of this psychology is wrapped in robots fighting each other. So it's like, from a surface level, it's like, oh my God, just watching robots fight. I mean, I love Transformers. Sign me up. But then like add this extra like cerebral kind of storytelling. What the hell, man? It's always been like such a, no, you know what? I take that back. I didn't understand until this last movie how much that movie has meant to me, or how much that series has meant to me, until that last moment of just me crying. Like, I literally cried, and then like just cried in Kelly's arms. Just like, I was just crying like a baby. Like, I could not, I didn't want to tell you this outright, but I was freaking crying, man. It was ridiculous.
You've been building up to it. It's like, oh yeah, I was kind of crying,
Yeah.
teared up. It's like, oh, I was crying.
I didn't want to like, be like, oh, Justin, feel bad for me. You have to like the movie too. I wanted to hear your unadulterated kind of like take on it as well. So let me know. What's your experience into the series? Let me know like how you've thought about, what did you actually watch? When did you watch the anime? When did you watch the movies, right?
So honestly, my connection to Evangelion is a lot less than yours, because I think I was the one that showed you the movies initially.
Yeah.
In like year 11, year 12, but then like to me it was just cool robots fighting. Like Cal will enjoy this.
And slightly more edgy.
Slightly more edgy, because you showed me Gundam 00. And I was like, okay, like I think Cal might like Evangelion. And when watching this movie, like I haven't even properly watched the series. I've only seen the reboot movies, and then my biggest connection with it is I love the series opening. I sing it every time I go to karaoke.
What an amazing song.
Cruel Angel's Thesis, so good. But that's my biggest connection to it. And then like when watching this movie, it was a very long movie. So long. And I was really tired as well. And the general sense for me was like,
I took a break.
I can finally get this over with. I've been waiting for this. I think the wait overstayed its welcome for me. I was like, I was keen for this maybe 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And at this point, it's more, I just want to get it over with.
Yeah. Because it's like you've already committed 90% to it. Let me just see this last 10%. Let me finish it off. I totally get that.
I've completely like forgot what happened in the last movie. I don't remember anything anymore.
Yeah.
But overall, it was like a beautiful movie. Like you can't, if anything, you can just watch it for the visuals and the music, because it's such a beautiful movie.
Yeah.
both like visually and also like, yeah, it's amazing.
I think.
But the messages itself, I think, very much flew over my head. Like I did not
Right.
catch
Right.
a lot of the things that you pointed out to me afterwards.
Yeah.
I didn't even catch the part where it was about like Shinji letting go of trying to restart. This spoiler
Yeah.
territory.
This is spoiler territory.
Yeah,
Right?
don't
Holy
worry.
shit.
Like, sorry if we spoiled something.
Oh God, I'm sorry.
But basically, yeah, I a lot of those things completely flew over my head. The last
Right.
40 minutes or so, I was like just sitting there like, what is going on? Like, someone please explain to me what is going
Yeah.
on. I've lost the plot.
I would not defend that. Like definitely like there was so much of the movie where it's like, I mean, so much of us wanted explanations for the previous one because I think the third movie in this series was probably the most divisive, the most controversial. People were like, this is straight trash because there was like a time skip of 14 years and he didn't explain anything to anyone. So everyone was just like, huh? What's going on? And the movie was like an hour and a half. So I remember seeing it be described as like not enough of anything, but too much of everything. And it's like just the worst of the worst, right? So people hated that and they expected this movie to kind of answer questions. When in reality, he just threw you more words. Like, it was like, oh my God, don't do this to me, right? But I think, if I were to put those flaws aside a little bit, I think the last 30 minutes, if you do watch the series, there's a lot of catharsis. There's a lot of fan service. There's a lot of like Captain America throwing Thor's hammer kind of vibes. If you're that committed into like the series itself. And then the first act of Rey, the new clone of her, just being slice of life, I thought that was just so fun. Like that was slow, but I think that was intentionally slow, and you could accept that it's slow. It's like, yeah, I want to see her live out her life and kind of go through the emotions of almost like sentience, like from a clone to, oh my God, I have emotions, I have free will. Like, you know what I mean? Like that was crazy. And I love that. Like the other movie that I could talk to you about 3 hours straight, no, 10 hours straight with is Blade Runner, right? This whole like series of robots gaining sentience and like kind of growing a conscience and like what is reality and does it really matter if it's manufactured? Like, oh my God, I love that conversation. So that slice of life was really cute for me. And I think it gave us something that we didn't have. I think one of the parts of the movie series that I really enjoyed, I don't know if you remember this, but I think it was in either 1 or 2, where it gets into this very slice of lifey kind of pace, where like Asuka, she kind of like cooks for Shinji, Rey cooks for Shinji, and they kind of like go on this like, oh, they both like him, but they don't want to say it, and she's like, I don't like him, but I'm gonna cook for him, I'm gonna make some food for him and stuff like that, and it's so cute, and I just love that kind of character development, and kind of because I guess the rest of the series is all action, all good action. I'm a very big fan of the action, by the way. I remember actually convincing Edward into watching the series with zero context. So he was so lost the whole time, but I managed to like trick him into watching it by showing him one action scene. I was like, dude, the action here is unparalleled, bro. Would you want to have a guess as to which one it was, Justin, if you were to...
I would probably guessed it's like end of movie 2, right? Where like you had the two like just that epic fight scene.
Where he becomes a god, pretty much?
Right before that, I think there was a fight. I barely remember, but like right before he becomes a god,
yep.
there was like a massive fight, which
there
led
was a
to
massive
him
fight.
become a god. I would have
Yeah.
guessed that one.
Not even
but-
that, but I think that is definitely top tier. Do you remember the one where the angel, in the context of Evangelion, you're basically fighting these angels. There are angels that are coming to Earth, and they're you got to fight these
Big
angels
monsters.
off.
Kaiju.
Big monsters, right? Exactly. Sounds silly, I know. It just sounds like me describing Transformers right now, but it's like, I swear it's better than that. It's more than that.
You wouldn't understand. It's deep.
They're like, this guy cried to Transformers, bro? Oh my gosh. They think so lowly of me, but I promise it's a bit more than that. It's a bit more than that. But do you remember the scene where the angel that came was a big ball? It was a massive ball asteroid. And they had to run to where that ball was going to land and then catch it as a team.
I barely remember it. I remember the big ball angel though.
I'll send you the clip for it. And I think the way they animate the Evas, the big robots, they animate it so well so that you understand the impact of how big they are. So when you see these things fight, they move around fast, but not for a single second do you discount like, oh, it looks like two people fighting. No, these are robots like that are massively, massively large, right? And like the magnitude of every hit. So the scene was like, they all stationed in different places because they don't know where the ball is going to land. The ball keeps changing its trajectory, so they have to kind of go on the fly. And so like, when it comes close enough, all three of them just start running to where the ball is
I remember
predicted
that.
to fall, right?
Yeah.
The running in that scene is animated so well, like it. I was just like, holy hell! You see him running through houses and stuff, and then he runs so fast that he breaks a sound barrier. I'm like, come on, this is the coolest thing ever. This is the coolest thing ever. And like, they lift up like the bank turns because he's got to change direction. So like out of the ground, like buildings come out so that he can like run against the wall and like
Oh,
change
yeah,
his
yeah,
direction.
yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
I showed that to Ed, and he was convinced just from that to watch the whole series without understanding anything. And I think even that is a testament to how good the damn action is. It's just like so damn good, man. Like change. And I think the other biggest one that I really enjoyed. Do you remember the sniper mission? Well, they have a big ass sniper for the
yeah.
Evas,
Yeah.
and they just shoot the sniper. That's come on, man. As a boy watching that, you're like, this is the coolest thing ever, man.
Big robots, the big sniper
Yeah.
rifle.
And you learn about like I learned about like superconductors in year 11 physics, and they're like, oh yeah, this is a superconductor gun. I'm like, oh, I know what that means. And it's just like, you know, it really like scratched the itch of the child inside of me. I was like, wow, amazing. I love that. And I
even like the robots, right? The Evas, they don't look like your regular mechs from like Gundam or like Transformers. They look
they're humanoids
strangely organic. They're like humanoids.
because they
The
are.
way-
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
The way they move.
They're just wearing
is
armor.
So like weird, like, and the way they're designed, they're like both terrifying and cool as well. Like there's something about their designs that are insane.
Nailed it. I think there is something so terrifyingly, like you can't even put into words what it is that it's so terrifying about the things that you're seeing, right? And it's just, yeah, it's an eerie sense of just when you see it, you're like, no, this is not just like I didn't just draw like angular shapes to build a robot. No, this is something like there is something mysterious and sinister about it. Love it. That was like, and then obviously you find out it's like, yeah, it's basically a humanoid. It is. I forgot what exactly like the law, how the exact law works. You know, I think I go through these phases where I have enough time to then dive into the law, so then I understand everything for a good like 2 months, and then obviously I can't hold on to that information forever, so I forget it, right?
Yeah.
But I was telling you before, like the biggest part of this last movie is just the time travel aspect of it, right? Well, not time travel aspect, but just like the time looping aspect, which I read as a theory a really long time ago because it wasn't confirmed on like some random Reddit, some like Reddit fan theories. They just like going crazy with it. And I remember reading where they were like, someone compiled all the evidence for it. I'll send you the picture for this as well. It's just like one big picture and you can see all the evidence that they've compiled. But it's this idea that the manga, the anime, and the movies are not just remakes of the same content. They didn't just remake it through the same content because they all have slightly different nuances through the story itself. And it's like the differences are explained by the fact that at the end of each series, right, Shinji kind of resets because the ultimate goal of like kind of the antagonist in these movies is that they want like this grand unification for all humans, right? That's kind of cool too, like the AT field idea and how humans, we have our own little AT fields because we are somewhat afraid of the next person, right? Somewhat afraid of the other person, and that kind of separation gives us the individualism as a human, but then at the same time restricts us or like prevents us from like kind of being one. And so like the crazy, I guess, Illuminati in this movie, they want to get to a point where everyone is just kind of melted into one big soup and one big consciousness so that we can be harmonious and live as one and have no pain and no suffering and live in this utopian society, right? And I guess like that's kind of at the end of every movie, that's what each movie or each series, whether it's the manga, the anime, or the movies, that's what they all work towards, right? And so at the end, Shinji, in say the anime and the manga, he gets to that point and he's like, wait, this sucks. And he resets everything, right? And he's like, no, I don't like this. Like, this is not the solution to my pain and suffering. Getting rid of that pain and suffering is not the solution, right? I got to live through this. And so he resets it, right? And he tries to live through everything and do things differently. And so you have slight differences in the series. And so when the movie came around, the movie series, it's like, oh my gosh, this is really different. So it's like Shinji's taking like a real different path through his life this time around. And the craziest thing is like this last time, he's like, I guess, confident enough to kind of let go of Evas, these big robots as a whole, right? And then create this world where the Evas don't exist and everyone can kind of live harmoniously. And I think the conflict in that is just that he's always held on to this Eva because his dad's been like an absolute POS. His dad's always like a terrible person, right? And like I think the one link that tied him to his father, the one link that allowed him to have this like gratification or have his father's approval was through these Eva robots, right? But I think this last movie, him deciding, no, I can live beyond this. I can live beyond this. I can live, freely. And I think that's kind of like the big takeaway for me. It's like he resets it this one time round without the Eva, and he accepts that fate. He moves on, and it's like that whole sense of moving on. It's like at the same time, the director, I think, wants that kind of sentiment for the viewers, right? Because we've been waiting for so long. But I think the last thing that he wants is he wants us to move on. He's like, hey, this is the last thing I want to give you. It's time for you to move on as well. And there's almost that like subconscious inner dialogue that I was having with the director, and it was just so emotional for me that. So like I was like, it felt like he was telling me to move on, and it's just like I am moving on, like I will move on, and it was exactly the kind of farewell message that I needed. So I was just like, I cried so much. It was just so much catharsis, bro. Unbelievable.
And I guess what do you think? Like, why do you think it speaks to you like to this level? I guess why do you think the original series caught your attention
like how did
so
that
much?
Speak? Yeah.
How did that speak to you so much that having this finale like really like culminated in like such an emotional response? What did it mean to you? Like what were the themes that kind of like stuck?
Yeah, no, I get what you mean. It's like the first time round, Shinji's like this antisocial, hyper emotional little boy that has daddy issues, right? Don't want to call anyone out, but I'd say I'd have the same issues. That is not a problem like with my parents, right? It's like I think growing up there are so many circumstances that contribute to my upbringing, but I think a lot of that resonated with me. I'm like, yeah, I don't fully understand the way my parents, or let's say my dad, I don't fully understand the way my dad is communicating his love for me, because we're on different pages. He's from a different generation. He's quite literally from a different country. He's been through a whole war. So it's like, it's very hard for me to communicate with my parents, right? On that emotional level. And I think a lot of refugee first generation would identify with that, right? It's like, they have this tough love. They're very stoic. It's like, but that's not the love that I speak. That's not the language that I speak and that I grew up with, right? Shinji and his dad are extremely on different pages, like very much on different pages, right? And regardless of how much he hates his dad, what he really wants, which he says quite explicitly throughout the series, is just that I like it when my dad tells me that I did good. And I think I also liked it when my dad told me that I did well as well. Like, I did so well at school, just so that he'd look at my report and be like, oh, nice, you did well. And that kind of like, that was, I guess, what I missed growing up, right? Because my dad was so stoic and he was so like hardened by the war and the tribulations and the trials that he had to kind of go through, right? So I totally vibed on that front. And I think that I took that to heart so hard, right? 8 years, 10 years later, right? Let's forget the movie for a second. I have gone through my personal growth to kind of like bridge that gap of learning how my parents communicate and empathizing with my parents, understanding them on more of an emotional level, and being ready and being there, available to them, right? Not just going, you can't speak my love language, you guys are trash, right? Understanding that everyone has like, if I have the empathy for my friend to understand that he has his own situation, I very much have the empathy to understand for my parents, right? Why my parents act in like these very irrational ways, it seems. Like, why are you doing this thing? It's so weird. Like, this is so not you. I don't like this when you do this, right? Without really going, wait a second, why do they do that? Why do they feel that way, right? Why did my parents say that? Or why is my parent? Why are my parents like always so angry or something like that, right? And I think this movie, the same thing. The director spent like 20 minutes of the last part just having Shinji and his dad talk it out. It was like a psychoanalysis episode. You know what I mean? It was like no fighting. He was like, this is not a battle you can fight. Let's just talk it out. and then you get Gendo's story, and you get Gendo being Shinji's father, and you actually hear him out. And I think that same journey to realization, that same journey to maturity, I went through. And so it's like, holy shit, did this guy like? It really felt like the director knew me. Like I was like,
Talking
you know
to
what I
you.
mean? Yeah, he was talking to me. So, and I think that's the beauty of all movies, right? Everyone takes a different kind of not approach, but like everyone takes different things from movies with books and any kind of media, right? I think for me, that's what I took, and that's what I really identified with, and that very much hit home. It's like I've gotten to a point where I have the capacity to be more patient with my parents. I understand where they're coming from. I'm no saint, because they'll definitely catch me on the bad days and I'll be terrible, right? But I've at least come around to the idea that, hey, you need to start learning to be more compassionate to your parents if you want that compassion to kind of be returned, right? And that's exactly kind of the story that he tells at the end. And like, I think that's kind of very beautiful. That's probably the biggest catharsis for me, because it's like, how do I tie up my empathy with Shinji, this hyper emotional daddy issue type child, with like this great blissful ending where he grows beyond the daddy issues and he matures beyond that, like myself. And I'm like, oh shit, I love this so much, bro.
That was a beautifully told story, Cal. Holy.
I can't believe this exists, where you're just letting me talk about Evangelion. This is crazy.
We've taken the listeners hostage with us as well.
Yeah.
You're gonna listen to Cal talk about Evangelion for 1 hour.
Yeah. And his therapy with his parents. But yeah, that's probably the biggest part for me, and that's why it was just so. It touched me so deep. Like, holy shit! It's definitely one of those ones where it just made me sit there. I think for even till the next day, I was just telling Kelly, I was like, I just still don't feel right. I still feel this hole that I'm like, oh my gosh, it was just like unexplained feelings almost. I'm still trying to reconcile with it. I was gonna watch it again last night, but I think I'll save it for another time.
Process
Just to
a little bit.
Yeah, process things a little bit and then kind of come back at it. But yeah, no.
I think the closest thing for me to that feeling is kind of the acceptance of like my own death, because growing up, I've always had like a huge aversion to death. It's like, it's something that I refuse to even think about. It's like I was always playing out different fantasies of like, oh, how can I like live forever, and how can like my family members live forever, kind of thing. And there was a moment where I had to let go of that childish fantasy, because it was really hampering my my actual life, right?
Yeah.
And there was an intense feeling of emptiness, like you were describing, of like letting go of like how I want the world to be, and accepting the world for how it is. And I think that's like kind of such a beautiful message that everyone can relate to on some level. Where like with this movie, it might not be the specific message that the director has been put through, but I think everyone has been in these situations where they like want something to be the reality. They don't want to like face whatever it is that deep down they know is the truth, and that they need to face in order to move on. But like you kind of get to a point like just naturally as you get more experiences, that you get the strength to be able to face this like truth without completely crumbling.
Yeah.
And something beautiful about that.
100%. And I think, you know what, you might speculate that that's not the director's kind of idea, but I would bet a good, like I'd definitely be very confident in my bet if that's exactly what he was saying. I think that is a really nice way to put it, man. Like this whole idea of acceptance and learning kind of like to appreciate what it is like that you have, and then kind of just moving beyond it, right, is so important, and is very much embodied by the main character here. Like, but then again, I think, you know what, the second message that like really hit home for me here was just this idea of, I guess you can say, like reaching out for help. I think in the past iterations of the anime and the manga, he's always tried to kind of gung-ho this, find happiness by himself, kind of figure it out himself. At the end of this movie, which people kind of don't like, I've seen some of this kind of like these comments out there where people are like, oh, he ends up with the girl with the big boobs, right? The Mari girl, where she's like, oh, I'm the girl with the big boobs, whatever. And like it feels like he's relying on her for some source of happiness, right? But the way that I see that, or the way that I've interpreted that last bit, is just that, like, you don't have to suffer by yourself, and accepting help from someone else, accepting like kind of someone into your life, is not a terrible thing. It's not escapism. It's not that you're running away from your own feelings. You've just invited someone in, and I think we both agree on this. Like, reaching out for help is the strongest thing you can do. It is the bravest thing that you can do, right? And I think that was kind of how I interpreted the ending, where he just goes, oh, I don't need to do this by myself. I can live a life with this girl, right? And we can live a happy life. We can move on and kind of let go of the things that has held him back in the past, that has kind of brought him so much suffering in the past. It's like, you don't have to try doing it again and again and again and again. It's like, no, this time around, I'm just going to learn to let go and move on, right? And like, a lot of people were really mad with that, because it feels like, yes, her character was kind of shoehorned in a little late, but I think it's this idea that, you know, if he keeps coming back to the same formula, if he keeps coming back to the main two girls or whatever, right, or have kind of falling into a romance with them and kind of trying to find happiness within, and he's done that so many times and he's found that he's not found any happiness there, then maybe he should look elsewhere, right? And then maybe he should be open to the idea of letting go of those kind of friendships, right? I think that's kind of like how I see it.
One beautiful thing about that, of how he ended up with Mari as well, is that it kind of flies, like, it's a reality of like your life isn't gonna be some like perfectly written story, right? And
Yes.
that's kind of what we instinctively want. We want like a pure story. We want like him to end up with the first girl he like had a significant moment with in the series, or like there has to be a deeper reason why he ends up with her, and that's kind of the stories we like to watch and the things that we tell ourselves. But that's not life. It's like, your life isn't like some like well-written like story with all these like loose ends nicely tied together. It's gonna have its ups and downs. It's gonna take you for a ride, and it's gonna, there's like a lot of things in your life, there won't be a reason for it. It will just happen. And I think that's a very important thing, that it's such an important message, because I feel like, as someone who like watches anime and like which is like, I feel like a very kind of like, in many senses, very childish, right? It's like
Fairy tale kind of things.
like kind of fairy tale kind of thing. Like I like these kinds of well like put together stories with like everything tying together. But that's not life.
I love that, dude. If I could shake your hand right now, I would shake your hand so hard, just in like two hands. Like, I think that is the most beautiful like interpretation of that ending. It's like, just because you end up with this, I think in normal media, or in a more generic kind of story, you might have the main character fall with this individual, and then they'll go through a whole 2-hour series of telling you why they're meant to be. Sometimes you end up with people who don't have this amazing magical thing, but you guys work together, you build a beautiful relationship from that. There's no need, I think there's like so much of this destiny, fate kind of propaganda in like normal media, where it's like, oh, no, this person's a special person. The protagonist is a special person, right? And so his spouse is going to be an extra special person. It's like, no. It doesn't have to always be my first love, or like the most beautiful, like serendipity. It could be just random, right? It could just be like, oh, this person came into my life when I needed them. They accepted me for who I was, accepted me for my flaws, and they helped me become a better person. Oh, that's your soulmate, dude. Like, your soulmate doesn't have to be freaking some K-pop idol that is always kind of been destined for you, right? It's like,
You didn't have to have like a childhood experience with each other. Like,
exactly. Bro, 100%, man. I'm so passionate about that. I freaking love that, man. Like, I'm so glad that you interpreted it that way as well. It's just like, because so many people were so mad, because like, oh, you've been building this relationship with these other girls. Like, why'd you just... It's like, bro, life is not a fairy tale. Like, you know, things don't work out just because you want it to work out, man. Like, I just might end up finding happiness with someone else, and I might not be able to explain why. It doesn't have to be because we fought robots, we prevented the end of the universe together. It's like, and what? I met this girl and she makes me happy, right? And we have a healthy relationship. Fantastic. Oh my gosh, dude. I love that so much. Where it's like, I think so much in today's society, we give people like this main character syndrome. It's
Oh,
like, I'm the main
yeah.
character. I hate it. Because it's brainwashed me to some degree, and I've been a victim of that. It's like, oh, I'm the main character of my life.
You're not
That
the main
shouldn't count.
character.
You are not the main
You
character, bro.
watching this right now.
Exactly. This
It's me.
is how we're gonna lose viewers. This is how we're gonna lose viewers, bro. Why'd you say that?
It was very aggressive as well. I was like, wait, I'm sorry.
No, but I'm a big. I hope you're. From how you've reacted, are you also like a non-main character type of person?
No, I feel like my entire life I've always like had main character syndrome, and it's
Me
like
too.
one of the things that like
Held you back?
one of the things that I had to learn. Oh yeah, I'm sure it was like it was making my life like worse. I was like, I'm sure it was making me unhappy. I haven't had time to probably digest that specifically, but I think it's something that I definitely had to grow out of, and it's that no, I'm not the main character, and
Yeah.
people
And
are
no, you're
living.
not special.
I'm
right?
not special. Like people live in their own lives. They're just doing their own thing.
Man, I mean, I feel like I've touched on this before. Like I've had kind of disagreements with how, the schooling system treated me, and I sound so privileged. I sound like a whining baby. It's like, oh, they treated me special. They said I was gifted, and now I'm turning around, I'm whining. I don't think that was healthy for me, man. That really like messed with my head, gave me this main character syndrome, or not gave me, but like I'd say contributed to it to some degree, right? And it's like, I can only live a meaningful life if I'm the main character. I can only live a meaningful life if I make $1 trillion and become the richest man on earth and become the first person to graduate from this uni and become the first of every. You know what I mean? It's like, bro, there is so much to life beyond that, man. Like there is so much to life that you can appreciate and like enjoy beyond like these like, I don't know, these silly goals that you might have been like developing in your head. And you know what? To that point, that is exactly why I love Blade Runner 2049 so much, man. That is another movie that I think the biggest reason is quite literally what we've been talking about. The biggest reason why I like that movie is just the main character. Oh, spoilers. Click off if you have never seen Blade Runner 2049. Have you seen it, Justin? I guess. Oh man, I can't say it.
Is that my homework? Before the next study break, I've got to watch Blade Runner.
I also feel bad like forcing these things down because once
Yeah.
again, it's like I understand. It's like everyone watches a movie and it's like you take different things away from it.
Mm.
My biggest enjoyment out of Blade Runner for 2049 was how it subverted this idea of the main character being the chosen one. Okay, let's look at Harry Potter for a second. The main character is the chosen one. You follow this protagonist because he's special. He's had this birth-given right to destroy Voldemort, these extra powers. I don't know, you go freaking watch Star Wars. There's always a chosen one. I mean, in Star Wars, they literally call him the chosen one, right? Or something like that. Lord of the Rings? Or was that Lord of the Rings? I don't know, same thing, right? Most narratives and stories I've always come across have always been like, hey, this guy has done this crazy thing in this movie because he's the chosen one, right? Blade Runner 2049 sets you up for the whole movie thinking, oh yeah, he does all these amazing things because he's the chosen one, to tell you in the last act, he is not the chosen one. He's a random dude. He has no significance in the grand scheme of everything, but his actions mean something. Because you don't need to be the special person to be like, to have this amazing change or to be able to make these life-changing decisions, right? And I thought that fucking blew my mind.
I just had the biggest realization right now.
Yeah.
So there's this movie called Spy Kids. I think it's like Spy Kids 3 or something. I think they played on this exact thing where it was like
Really?
this guy in shining armor. His name's like the Dude, and then like everyone he comes out, and then like everyone's like, that's like the Dude. It's like it might be something else, but something along the lines.
I think it is. Yeah.
Like the Dude, and then he just gets whipped like immediately by like the villain, and then like turns out it subverted that, and it was like the Dude wasn't him.
Right.
And I think that was probably playing off of Blade Runner.
Right, a very similar idea, right? Just this, the main character not having to be special to do special things. You know where I'm coming from? Like, you can have... And on top of that, Blade Runner 2049, like, talks about, what does it mean to be... Like, what does it mean to have memories? And what does it mean to have like, this consciousness, right? Because they follow, like, a protagonist who's who's not who's technically a robot, right? And the way that in this new society, the way that they regulate these robots and give them a like a semi-stable life so that they can do the things that we require them to do, like be cops and do laborious things, is we give them fake memories in Blade Runner 2049. They feed them fake memories so that they have this kind of like human element to themselves so that they can function, right? And I think the beautiful thing is, my interpretation of it is that, does it matter that the memories are fake? And I think at the end, there is a sentiment of, it doesn't matter. If the memories gave you genuine feelings, it made you genuinely feel a certain way, I don't think it matters if the memories were fake, right? And it doesn't discount their existence as robots. Doesn't discount their existence, doesn't discount everything that they've done, right? And to kind of top it off, he also has a girlfriend, the robot. He has a girlfriend, and you can buy this girlfriend. Her name is Joy, right? And it's like a stick. You buy her, and then she's like a hologram. And then she kind of lives with you, and she's AI. So then she kind of like develops. She says nice things, and she kind of says what you want to hear. And I think that relationship develops out throughout the whole movie. And then she dies, or like the robot, or someone destroys the transponder that kind of contains that AI girlfriend. And he's so pained by it. And I think a lot of people look at that, because then the scenes after that, he walks out on the street and he sees the same advertisements for the girlfriend that he just bought, right? I think a lot of people look at that and go, oh, that relationship is cheap, or that relationship is fake, or they're trying to say the relationship is fake. I don't think so. My interpretation is just that, hey, if she made you feel certain ways, you can't take that away from you. I felt real love, right? I don't care if she's fake. I felt real love. And I think there is something so beautiful about that, so like compassionate and open-minded about that. Just like, yeah, no, it's like, that's kind of like, I guess we're talking about like freaking, what is it? Like this whole sci-fi element now, but like, yeah, that's kind of how Blade Runner's like one of my favorite movies ever. But yeah, it plays on that same like trope, right? That whole main character's not special. He's some random clone that we just picked up, and he just managed to be in the right place at the right time, and he just decided to act beyond what he was programmed to do. And that's just the way that he is, right? Because he has the ability to do so. Not because he's special, not because he was born special, whatever, just because that's what he is. But yeah, sorry. Now I've also given you guys my Blade Runner rant.
Excellent.
You guys are, there's spoilers, but hopefully it motivates someone. I've asked so many people to watch it because I was so passionate about it, and then they're like, yeah, it's cool. And I'm like, oh, this is so sad. But I've come to accept, everyone sees like different things when they watch the movies. It's like they take away different things.
I think a movie like that for me was Hotel Rwanda. I think
I was gonna ask.
Yeah, I recommended that to, like, I think you've have
I've
you
seen it. I've ended up seeing it.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't watch
And
it.
I've recommended it to a few people, and I don't think anyone had as similar of a reaction to me.
Walk us through that reaction again. I've kind of.
I think so. I guess a fundamental like theme in my life, I guess, is kind of the realization that is kind of like the realization of like I'm going to die kind of thing, right? Like, and I guess there's this a bit of a fantasy world where that doesn't exist, and that's something that I had to overcome. And it's that like the world is pretty like the world is harsh, the world is brutal, and there are like undeniable things that you can't, like, just because you build yourself a little like safe haven, right? You can't keep those things out. And I think Hotel Rwanda was represented that to me. And it's that we take our society with peace and like no like death and no murder for granted, because that's not the natural state of things. The natural state of things is one tribe kills another, and or like people in power, like people with power, will just indiscriminately like do things, horrific things to take control of like a society or something, and that it's something that happened so close to. It's not like the true story it's based off isn't some thing that happened like a millennia ago. It's something that happened in the 90s, right? the decade that I was born, and you still had this society where they were like committing genocide, and that's like insane to me, like in the modern like context, because we like to think of ourselves as so refined, right, that we're above these things, but I think
We're not.
it's a good reminder that like we're not above these things, and that the pattern of trying to close yourself off to like these things that could, like, just because they haven't happened in your life doesn't mean it can't happen at all.
Yeah.
I think this kind of like represents to me one thing that I feel strongly about, which is like not ceding too much power to authorities. I think that's kind of where it comes from, because I feel like, yeah, it's not something that you can see happening or something that happens every day, but if it does happen, it's something that you can't take back, and it's and I think that's why like the message speaks so deeply to me. It's that there are things that can happen outside of what you believe, which is like
No,
a very
I get
weird
you.
way of like
It's a wake-up call.
It's a
big
wake-up call.
that
That's
Yeah.
the best way to describe it. Like
Yeah.
for me, the coronavirus represented something very similar. It's like, yeah, before it happened, to me, there's like, oh yeah, like, no, like there's no way,
me.
like it doesn't feel like something like this could happen. Like maybe logically, if you ask me, could like a virus like kind of not decimate, but like affect our society like so severely, I would probably say, yeah, logically, but it's not something I understood deep down. And I guess it's like this movie was a reminder that you've got to pay attention to these things that could happen, and that, yeah.
No. There is something I cannot explain, but there is just like how there is something so terrifying about the Evas. There is something so brutal. There's a brutality to the Rwandan kind of massacre that just like, I'd say the weapon of a machete, the weapon of choice being the machete. That like makes me like gives me chills to the bone, like to this day, to think about people being hacked by machetes in their streets, in their homes, right? It's such like a brutal act of like violence, and to be like, yeah, I was born in that decade, like, oh, that's just like 10 years ago or 20 years ago, right? As obviously as we go forward, it goes further and further, but it's like, man, that's some stuff that you expected to read in your history books in the 20s, maybe the 1800s, hopefully, right? We kind of like grew up in, I think we both, I think a lot of people definitely grow up very sheltered, right? In the middle class.
Sheltered, yes.
So sheltered, man. And it's like the movie itself, yeah, was a huge wake-up call, and it's, man, it gives me anxiety sometimes, because was Hotel Rwanda like the safe haven? Like they would stay there and kind of like find refuge for a little bit, right? And the UN kind of like tried to get them out of the hotel, and the hotel owner was kind of like protecting and hiding these people, the people that were being chased down and like being mass murdered across the country, right? So crazy. I think that's very interesting. But yeah, I remember you told me about it. I had to watch it. I was always very familiar with that stuff, very interested about that stuff. I was a very big history buff back in high school, so I definitely read it before, but watching it, wow, just scary, man. It's some scary stuff. Any other movies, Justin, that have kind of moved you to this moment, moved you to this, since we're already like on a roll in terms of like the movie media?
Hamilton, that's the most recent one.
Oh,
That like shook me to the core.
that's not a movie, you cheater. I'm
Hey,
kidding.
hey,
I'm kidding.
Gave me the same feelings. It's
Alright,
love,
alright,
bro. It's love. I felt the feelings, Cal.
Explain yourself. Exactly. Hey, I'm not here to discount your emotions and your experience, man. That is 100% valid, bro.
I think. So I went to see Hamilton. Like for everyone that like hasn't heard of it, it's like just like this amazing like musical that it's about the American, I think it's like Civil War. I actually don't know what it is, but it's when the Americans like formed America and like kicked the British out, kind of thing.
Right.
And I think it was just what struck me about it was like it was an amazing piece of storytelling on like every level. It's not just a story about the Civil War. It's a story of America, but it's also not just about America. It's about Alexander Hamilton, like the person himself. And there's so many layers of story building to it, like kind of how America has grown as a country. They mix in a lot of very modern American culture into the story. There's like references to basketball, to like hip hop. There's like pop. There's so many things that come into it. There's a lot of people who are white, like in history, right? Like Aaron Burr is just some white guy, but he's played by a black person in the play, and that happens. That happens everywhere, and I guess like I didn't realize how much American culture affected me. I didn't realize it, but like looking at it, like no, like my Australian culture is so heavily influenced by American culture, and I would say probably I'm more influenced by American culture than Australian culture, because what I grew up watching were like American YouTubers. Like those are kind of my version of movie stars, right? Like Ryan Higa is like is like someone I would be starstruck by, as opposed to if I met like I don't know, man. Like if I met
Hugh Jackman.
Hugh Jackman.
I kind of like Hugh Jackman.
Different story. But if I met like Scarlett Johansson, right? I don't think I would be starstruck. I would be like, oh, that's pretty cool.
cool.
Like I like her in the Marvel movies. But if I met Ryan Higa, I would be, like I would lose my shit.
Understandable.
Sorry, but that's a tangent. That has nothing to do with like Hamilton. But
Yeah.
I guess Hamilton just kind of opened my eyes to a lot of different things of like, okay, like opened me to the genre of musicals. And
That's true. I've heard a lot of people treat Hamilton like the gateway. It's like, oh, I'm gonna go back and watch these other musicals now, and like, that's very interesting. Very accessible musical, is it? Because I feel like musicals are very inaccessible in a traditional sense. It's like very posh, very high IQ. I'm like, nah, I probably don't vibe with that.
Yeah, it's like I feel like it flaunts those like traditional things of kind of like I get the same vibe from like classical music, or I think it's like you've got to be more educated to appreciate this media. It's not
classist.
It's not for the plebs, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like Hamilton really challenged that idea in my own head. I'm sure it's not a thing. Like it might be a thing, but like I feel like that's something like that was in my own head of that these things are things that I can't enjoy. I think that's what it represented to me. I think in my head, musicals were this thing that it's not for me. Like it's not for me to enjoy, kind of thing. Because I didn't grow up posh or anything. But I think kind of challenge the ideas of like certain media as being for certain people, and that you can't
subverted expectations. I'm always a big fan of that, man. That's always my favorite, bro. When like directors put in the effort to kind of go the mile, go the extra bit, and kind of like subvert your expectations, man. It's like that effort. I love it.
You know what it is as well? I've just realized it's because I love pop music. Like pop music is like, to me, like there's nothing else like I can like it's so good. It's like crack, right?
Yeah.
Like, and nothing else compares to it. But then it's kind of not cool to like pop music as your like number one favorite
thing. Oh my
thing.
gosh, yes.
Right, like you've got to be cooler.
You've got to have your own personality. Wow, pop music's your personality?
Like
you're a loser.
Yeah, cringe. Right?
Cringe, yeah.
But like pop music is my favorite genre of music, and Hamilton kind of challenged that, where it's like, no, here are pop songs in a musical, something that's like that's more it's more cultured, right?
It validates pop music almost. It's like,
it validates pop music, and I thought
those people looking down on it, I'm gonna put it in a musical. And it's like, now it's the most valid form of music, bro. Get on my level. No, I get that. That's mad. I will admit, when I was a lot younger and super naive, I was very much of that camp. Oh, you like pop music? You don't have a personality. You just like whatever's on the radio. And then I went through like a like an
Metamorphosis.
ultimate, yeah, like no, straight up like the rubber band it slingshotted me all the way back to the other side. Because for the longest time I was listening to underground rappers. I was like, this person, too many views on this YouTube video. I'm not listening to this, and I thought I was so cool, and that was like my identity. And then now I've like I don't know if that's the word, slingshotted on the way onto the other side, and now I'm like, Taylor Swift is the best. I love K-pop. It's like I love all this stuff. It's pop music is like straight crack to me as well, man. I totally get it. And I love that appreciation. I hope people are more open to that in the future. It's like, yeah, man, you can be cool, listen to pop music, man. You don't always need to be listening to some crazy experimental, I don't know, whatever the heck you're listening to, right? No, that's cool. I totally get where you're coming from now. And I've heard in passing some of these Hamilton songs, and I've just in passing, and I've already been really impressed. I'm like, that's some catchy ass stuff, bro. Holy.
What's like? I think the reason why I'm so struck by like the musical is that it's like S tier in every way. It's not like it's not a gimmick. I think is the main thing, because on the surface it very much looks like a gimmick, like in every way.
Yeah.
Right. It's like,
I get you.
like I'm combining like modern, like something modern with like something like old, like with something traditional. And like I feel like a lot of times we do see that as gimmicky. Like a lot of times we see it done poorly, which
Like
is
in
why
restaurants, like fusion restaurants, are like, oh, I'm gonna combine this and this, and it's like, bro, this is the most whack thing I've ever eaten. What the heck, bro? Just keep it simple. I get you, man. Sometimes I'll see fusion restaurants. I'm like, that's a gimmick. I know where you come from.
when done poorly, like this kind of thing is like terrible. But it's the fact that the person who wrote it is genius, right? He truly understands musicals, but also modern pop music and modern rap. And like all of the songs in there are like amazing. Because like I'm sure everyone's seen like cringe rap songs.
Yeah.
And it's just the worst. And
when white people try rap, kind of like that kind of vibe.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
it just doesn't work kind of thing. But then in this musical, like he forces like these raps to be about the American Civil War. He forces it to be about like forces it into like using some older language, right? It feels like something that should be like ham-fisted and cringe and like shoved down your throat. But the fact that he did it so masterfully that it's like seamless is what's amazing about it. Amazing about this musical to me.
It's like parodies. You know parodies where they're like, oh, this is a parody of a popular song, but we changed the words out to make it like, I don't know, like Among Us or something like that. It's like, oh, this is the most cringe thing I've ever heard, man. I want to kill myself listening to this. I know where you're coming from. It's like, how'd you guys do this? It's like a recipe for cringe, and you guys pulled it off so masterfully. Amazing.
Exactly.
No, I get where you're coming from, bro. 100%. I need to go see it, but I remember like, I think Harley got to see it like right before lockdown, but now it's like,
Oh, lucky man. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure they're going to extend it because of the lockdown. So I'll go see it again, man. Like, it's very rare that like there's only been a handful of pieces of media where I've watched it and I was genuinely shook. I haven't had that in a long time.
oh, nice. Nice, dude. I'm very happy for you. I just love that experience because I've also experienced that in like the things that I've mentioned today, and I was like, I just wish, everyone can kind of like find that kind of, I guess that for themselves. Like there are so many things out there that I've consumed in terms of media and just like moved me, right? It's changed my mind about things. I love that. I think that's one of the most beautiful things about movies, and like, I don't read books anymore, unfortunately, but movies, let's leave it there. Like TV shows or something like that, right? Anything else, Justin? Hamilton, Hotel Rwanda?
No, that's about it for me. Shall we wrap up for this episode? I think we delved into like some pretty nice topics.
Yeah, true. Probably sick of me talking about movies at this point. Yeah. All right. What's your song for this week, Justin?
All right, song recommendation from a streamer actually. It's called Last Cup of Coffee.
You listen to a lot of streamers, man.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It's like when COVID started, I started like just watching streamers a lot more. Offline TV, I don't actually watch the streams. I just watch YouTube compilations. So I'm not as deep in the source, but this song, I think the theme of death really resonates with me because it was such like a thing that I was thinking about so much when I was younger. I would literally stay up at night and cry myself to sleep because thinking that one day I'm going to die.
Can I just say the same? Like I also experienced, man, like
Oh
100%. Like also, oh, I'm gonna die, and being so young and being introduced to that idea, and not understanding a way to wrap your head around that. My parents are gonna die. Holy hell! I definitely remember nights just like lying there and crying. I'm like, why am I going through this? Is this like something everyone goes through? Is everyone? I don't know. It's crazy.
Why was
man.
I born kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know
Oh
what?
my gosh.
I kind of realized that's main character syndrome.
True. Oh.
I'm the main character. I can't die. No, you're not. You're a side character.
You can die.
Yeah.
Whoa, dude. I like that. I think that's why I really like things that I've mentioned before as well. It's like, it's very accepting, you know what I mean? It's very much like, yeah, this is it. This is it. It doesn't have to be some grandiose display of life. It's like, yeah, life can be just as meaningful if it's not, or if you're not the main character. Man.
And this
Big
song
lesson for me, man.
is all about that. It's called Last Cup of Coffee, and it's like just this like super cute, like upbeat song, and it's about drinking the last cup of coffee that you will ever drink in your life, and like enjoying it, and like
Whoa, this is very heavy for a streamer song.
yeah, no, it's amazing.
That's awesome. Dude, I will check this out after this. Definitely, dude. That got me sentimental. Got me a bit melancholic, bro. Just thinking about there will be a cup of coffee that I will drink, and that will be my last cup of
It
coffee.
hits deep, right? Like, because I like coffee. I drink a lot of coffee, and
I do drink a lot of coffee, bro.
There will be one last, like a final cup someday.
It reminds me, like, have you ever seen that sentiment shared around the internet where it's like, there'll be like one last Discord call you have with one of your boys, and you won't know it's your last Discord call.
I haven't
And
seen
I'm
that.
like, and it's just like, you're gonna live the rest of your life not realizing that was the last time you guys were gonna kind of like, you're hanging up, you're like, all right, this is the last time we're playing games. And that's why I've tried to come back to playing games, you know, just enjoy my time with the boys. I was like, I'm never gonna let you guys go, but man, that's kind of scary. It's like the last interaction, gets you sentimental.
For sure. And what's
Alright.
your song recommendation, Cal?
You know what, in light of what you just mentioned though, like, did you also notice how in Evangelion, like, this is how we go. I'm not stopping the conversation here. We're continuing.
Let's go.
But isn't like a big part of it was just like the father was so fixated. Oh, a part of why, just for the viewers, just a bit of context, the part of why the father has like kind of championed this project of melting every human into one soul and one body is so that he can see his wife again, because his wife is gone, right? And his inability to accept that loss and that death has driven him insane to literally do the craziest of the crazy thing. Did you pick that up? Was that something that you kind of catch on?
Yeah.
I think that's something that definitely like runs down your lane, right? It's like that whole acceptance of death, and he talks to his son, and he realizes so much more, right, about his wife, and then he accepts death, and then, yeah, he dies with his wife at the end. Oh man. Anyways, I'm gonna watch it. Definitely will watch it. But my song recommendation is literally I recommended it before when it came out in Japan. I was listening to the song because the song for it came out internationally. But the song for Evangelion, this song, I bought the record for it.
Oh, no way.
I bought the record vinyl for it. I pre-ordered it. I was like, after I listened, I was like, this is too good. I think vinyl collecting is one of those things I do to kind of immortalize the things that really mean a lot to me. But One Last Kiss, the song that ends the whole movie,
Ends a
I
whole
think just-
series.
that whole oh god, just the moment, that last scene, she like holds his hand or something like that, and then you see the hands kind of holding together, and then like he stands up, and then they walk off the train station. Their song kicks in. Wow, caught me off guard. That was immediately the moment when I started crying. That was like just started coming out like, holy hell, I cannot stop crying. It's so beautiful. And that, yeah, just the catharsis, amazing. But that's my song. I would recommend everyone to listen to it. It's so damn good. Watch the trailer because you get like a visual element with the song as well. But yeah, that's my song for this week.
Oh, awesome. You want to close up for us, Cal, for this special episode?
Oh,
Study
yeah.
Break, first episode of Study
Thank
Break.
you guys for listening to my rant. I hope I've converted some people to go, you know what, let me watch some Evangelion, let me watch some Bladerunner. Hopefully you've converted some people to check out Hotel Rwanda and go watch Hamilton as well.
Go watch Hamilton.
Yeah, and let me know in the comments, bro, what you think. No, I'm kidding. Let me know in real life what you think. Man. Just tell me. I'm so down to just sit here and just have a conversation about all these things for like an hour or two or whatever like that, bro. Anyways, thank you for listening. Hope to see you guys soon. See you guys in a couple weeks or whenever it is that we get back together. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.